We usually think about nations being shaped by, say, big historical events, politics, or culture. But what if the most powerful force of all is the land itself? The mountains, the seas, the stuff hidden under the ground. Today, we're going to dig in how the varied geography of 5 incredibly different countries, from a tiny desert peninsula to a kingdom literally below sea level, has shaped their unique destinies.
Right? It sounds like the start of a pretty weird riddle. On the surface, these 5 places have almost nothing in common. But each one of their stories is a masterclass in how a country's physical reality, all its opportunities and all its limitations, really defines its path in the world. So let's meet the players.
Okay, first up, Canada. And you really have to start with the scale of this place. It's just immense. We're talking about massive forests, more than half of all the lakes in the entire world, and a ton of valuable minerals. And then there's the coastline, the longest of any country on Earth, touching 3 different oceans.
Now let's flip the script and shrink things down, way down, to the Netherlands. This is a nation that is in a constant, never-ending battle with the sea. A huge chunk of the country is literally below sea level. That reality has forced the Dutch to become some of the most creative, most brilliant engineers on the entire planet.
Let's head north to Norway, a country really defined by its stunning fjord-carved coastline. For centuries, its whole life was the sea, fishing, shipping, you name it. But not too long ago, that very same sea revealed a totally new kind of treasure, massive reserves of oil and natural gas just hiding under the waves.
And next we jump over to the Persian Gulf, to the tiny peninsula of Qatar. It's small, it's dry, and for most of its history, it was, a pretty minor player on the world stage. Well, that all changed with the discovery of one of the world's biggest reserves of natural gas, which basically turned this small state into a global financial and political giant overnight.
And finally, we have Spain. It's perfectly positioned right at the intersection of Europe and Africa, with the Atlantic on one side and the Mediterranean on the other. This unique spot has created an incredibly diverse landscape. You've got a high, dry, central plateau, a lush green Basque country in the north, and those sun-soaked coasts that have been a magnet for people for centuries.
So, we've met our 5 nations. Now, let's get into the raw materials they had to start with. The best way to think about it is like this. Each nation was dealt a hand in a sort of geographical lottery. So, what did nature actually give them to work with?
And what's so fascinating when you look at it this way is the contrast. You've got Canada, which is kind of like a resource generalist. It's got a bit of everything. Then you have Qatar, a total energy specialist, with pretty much all its wealth concentrated in gas and oil. The Netherlands, well, they turned their biggest threat, the sea, into a huge advantage with a major port and rich farmland they literally created. Norway, like Qatar, is an energy giant, but it also has hydropower and fisheries. And Spain's mixed-bag geography gave it a variety of minerals and a perfect coastline for both business and beaches.
Just try to wrap your head around that number, 243,000 kilometers. That's long enough to circle the entire planet 6 times. And this isn't just for pretty pictures. It's the economic backbone for about 1,500 rural and coastal towns, supporting a huge fishing industry. Okay, so we go from this massive opportunity in Canada to an existential threat. For the Dutch, this number, 27%, was literally a matter of life and death. Living below sea level meant their very survival depended on human cleverness. It was this constant, looming danger that forced them to master water management on a scale nobody had ever seen before.
And this number just shows you the incredible scale of Norway's energy wealth. By 2010, the country had saved more than $500 billion from its oil and gas money. This wasn't just some rainy day fund. This was a deliberate strategy to secure the nation's future for generations, long after the very last drop of oil is gone.
See, it's not just about the cards you're dealt, it's all about how you play them. So now let's look at how these nations actually responded to their unique geographical situations.
The Dutch didn't just, build bigger walls. They totally reshaped their country. This timeline shows a multi-generational war against the ocean. The project back in 1932 didn't just stop floods, it created a giant freshwater lake and brand new land for farming. Then, after a truly devastating flood in 1953, they went even bigger with the Delta Project, a mind-blowing series of dams and barriers that's considered one of the modern wonders of the world.
So, when a country strikes it rich with something like oil or gas, it has to make a huge choice. What do we do with all this money? That is its resource strategy.
And believe me, it can send nations down completely different roads. Let's compare two of our energy superpowers.
In this slide just lays out two radically different ways of thinking. Norway is playing the long game. It sucks away its wealth, investing it for the future so its grandkids can benefit. Qatar, on the other hand, is playing the fast game. It uses its massive wealth for immediate impact, building futuristic cities, buying global influence, and making sure it's secure by spending a whopping 10% of its GDP on defense and making deals with major world powers.
So, where does all this lead? How does the geography, the resources, the big strategies, how does that actually play out on the world stage? And just as important, how does it affect life inside these countries? Let's take a look at their global footprints and their internal fault lines. So each of these nations has carved out its own special role. The Netherlands, sitting at the crossroads of Europe, hosts international courts, making itself a hub for global justice. Canada and Norway use their stability and wealth to be huge players in peacekeeping and foreign aid. Spain is woven tightly into European politics and military. And Qatar? Well, Qatar has used its money to punch way, way above its weight class, helping out the US military and gaining a ton of diplomatic clout at the UN.
But here's the thing. While geography can help a country project power out into the world, it can also create some really deep divisions right at home. You see, distinct regions with their own unique landscapes, their own histories, and their own identities can pull a country apart just as easily as a shared border can bring it together.
And we see two perfect, powerful examples of this in Canada and Spain. In Canada, the very distinct culture and language of Quebec has fueled a serious separatist movement. This led to two incredibly close independence votes and the creation of a major political party, the Bloc Québécois, that exists solely to represent Quebec's interests. Meanwhile, in Spain, the unique identity of the mountainous Basque region gave rise to ETA, a separatist group whose fight for independence lasted for decades. In both cases, a powerful sense of regional identity, tied to a specific place, created a constant challenge to the idea of a single unified nation. So after looking at all these different stories, all these different paths, what's the big takeaway here? Well, it's that while geography is incredibly powerful, it isn't destiny.
And this is really the most important point. Geography sets the stage. It deals the cards. It gives you the challenges, and it offers up the opportunities. But it doesn't write the final chapter. The Dutch chose to fight the sea. Norway chose to save its oil money. Qatar chose to spend it on global influence. These are human decisions, political, economic, and social choices. Geography gives you the blueprint, sure, but it's the people who actually build the house.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. Think about where you live. What are its geographical advantages? What are its biggest limitations? Is it a crossroads or is it an island? Is it rich in resources or is it poor? And the most important question of all, what choices are being made right now in response to that reality? Because in the end, that's what truly shapes a nation's destiny.